OK, this is Talk, and we've got a very special guest now, somebody who has a huge amount of knowledge of Britain's asylum crisis. As you know, immigration is completely out of control in the UK, and workers' wages are being pushed down significantly as a result of the number of people that came to Britain. We were told that Brexit was going to help us out, but in fact it didn't. Phillip Ullmann started as a wire manufacturer in Watford, and then went on, when manufacturing was offshored, to be an employer of, what, 100,000 people every year, many of them migrants. And you were somebody who supplied all of these warehouses that are the reason that we can order something today and it arrives tomorrow.
With security people and warehouse staff.
Yeah, with security, cleaning, most of them were pickers and packers.
And very big companies such as Amazon and big, massive companies.
Large companies.
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, why not stay in manufacturing? Why did you go into outsourcing? And why did you decide it was wrong in the end?
Look, my dream is manufacturing. I read engineering university, and that's what I should have been doing. But fundamentally, this country lost its way, and we couldn't compete because labour has been outsourced effectively to China, where it's cheaper.
But you couldn't compete with that. How come the Germans could compete with their car, industry and stuff like that?
Well, in this country, we decided that we're not good at manufacturing.
Was our labour force not very good, though, was it? It's not like the Germans, is it? I remember the cars in the 70s.
I think we decided to give up as a group of people.
I think that's right.
The union.
Look, we allowed entrepreneurs to make decisions in their own interest. We said, look, they run their own businesses, they can make more money by exploiting labour, which was cheap in China, in the Far East, which meant that we were buying cheaper products, which means that people's jobs had gone. So effectively exporting jobs and meaningful jobs to people, to other countries, and that can't be allowed to continue.
You end up with this enormous company. I mean, presumably a lot of adulation, a phenomenal amount of wealth, 100,000 people working for you. You're the largest employer of immigrant labour. And now you are effectively campaigning. There was an article in the Telegraph the other day. You're effectively campaigning to say that jobs should be brought back to Britain.
Look, people's needs have to be met. And primarily, we have to be responsible for the people in our country. And we have to provide them with their needs, which is food and clothing and a meaningful job. That's not just a benefit package where they get given the money to buy food. No, they have to have meaningful work. And if you're not meeting that need, fundamentally you're not meeting the needs.
But the corporates aren't interested. They're the ones who've got the purse strings, and they want the cheap labour, and basically so they've sent it to the bottom and they've robbed the poor of their jobs.
100%. They're not. All they're interested in is
and we're subsidising it, the people who have got jobs.
100%. Look, we've been travelling around the country, and lots of areas have been left behind. There are not meaningful jobs. People are on benefits, and therefore that is crazy. And we have to work together to ensure that people's needs are met, including employment. And we're a clever country. The skills that we've got in the UK, we led the Industrial Revolution.
But we don't have any power with the democracy. The corporates are in charge, and so we've not got a chance to do anything about it.
Well, we can. Democracy has to make... I agree with you at the moment. You've got two parties, neither of whom are coming up with almost a fresh...
Well, they're in on it, aren't they? They're in on it.
I would say they're in on it, but we need people to think with a blank sheet of paper, not to think with basically small changes. The system is fundamentally broken.
But, Philip, what happens when somebody turns around and says, oh, well, it's easy for you to say this, you know, you've made all this money off all this migrant labour, now you've got that money, now you've made that success, now you're turning your back on it?
On the contrary, look, I don't need more money than I've got. I'm happy with what I did. And in fact, I don't even have a car. Genuinely, money doesn't do it. What I'm trying to achieve is to take responsibility, which we all should, for other people's needs and for the needs of the planet. That should be the way.
But the government won't. They're kowtowing to China and Qatar, and that's what they care about, isn't it?
Well, look, I agree that we're not thinking, how can we meet people's needs? I agree with you that, but neither of that matters to the Labour Party.
Before we go any further, what is the human cost of dragging people from Poland and making them work on in a warehouse for minimum wage in, say, Milton Keynes?
Well, that I can talk personally to, because that's what we did. So typically, a worker would live in cheap accommodation where they bed share. One person would sleep in the bed during the day, someone else at night. They would eat a packet of biscuits a day, very healthy, and they would be without their family. Their family would remain in Eastern Europe, and they wouldn't integrate with society. This is not a healthy lifestyle, but it's something that...
But here's the thing. We continually talk about immigration pushing down the cost of labour and constantly complain about our own country. But actually, what you've just said to me says that the migrants we are dragging here are actually victims of this system as well.
No doubt. The workers in this country are victims, and so are the migrants. Capitalists, people that run businesses, are not being forced to account to people, to go public. They're allowed to run their businesses to make as much money as they want. Money they don't need.
But that's what their job is.
Anyway.
Their job isn't to be social workers. So they'll say, yeah, we just got to look at the bottom line.
That's the way the system operates, and that needs to be reviewed.
Yeah.
Because as long as we continue.
But when I say they're in on it, they are in on it.
Yes.
The politicians are getting on the boards, and you know, so how can you break the power?
Because effectively democracy will. Because the younger people I speak to a lot, they can't buy houses now. They can't get jobs that are meaningful.
But who would they vote for then?
Well, at the moment, you've got two parties fighting over a very narrow space, and nobody is thinking with the blank sheet, but what would you actually do to meet the needs of the young people?
But when you speak to young people, are they aware of the damage that's been done by the offshoring of all of these jobs?
Of course they are. They know that lots of the jobs that are actually here are meaningless jobs. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and real manufacturing really provide manufacturing goods that people need. Running businesses for people, people locally are making decisions. And most of our businesses, decisions are made at the top. They're centralised, and the people at the coalface actually become almost pawns. They become cogs in a machine, and that again has to be reviewed.
My dad was the boss of a major company, and you know, we had a nice house, he had a nice car, but he didn't win the lottery every single month like some of these CEOs do now. And it just strikes me, when I look at people, even friends of mine who are phenomenally wealthy, you know, they're sat in gated houses, they're sat on yachts. My dad, I would like to think, ran his company for the benefit of the people who were both the customers and the employees. But there's none of that now. It's just an algorithm for how you can screw people the hardest.
It's almost a lottery mentality. We see the lottery, we see what you're supposed to do is make £1 million and win it at the lottery, and you'll be happy. The answer is you won't. It's very simple, because you end up on a gated estate, living a lonely life.
With loads of money.
With loads of money, but no relationships.
Yeah, yes. But you can just order everything online. And the thing is, when I started work, it was sort of like the workers were on, say, 20, 30 grand, and the boss is on 120. And you go 25, 30 years later, and the workers are still on 30 grand, but the bosses are on £500,000 a year.
Well, it's more than that. The ratio, it's a huge ratio. Absolutely right.
That's where the changes happen.
Yeah, the system has been allowed to run free. It's out of control.
But what did people say to you? And I'm going to say this in the most delicate way possible, but what did people say to you when you could literally be sitting right now on a yacht in a gated community, but you've chosen not to? Instead, you've chosen to campaign for more corporate responsibility, for better democracy, and for an end to this unfair immigration system. I mean, surely people must have said, Philip, you've done well, get the yacht, buy a Bentley and be happy.
He'd look silly in a yacht in a gated community.
I would look silly. The bottom line is, look, money doesn't do it for anybody. You need to meet your needs. You need food, you need clothing, you need a house, you need family, you need community. But what's the point of having this big number in your bank account?
Well, they say money won't get you happiness, but it'll get you misery, it'll get you comfort in misery.
No, you won't. The number that you actually need is not a big number.
No, that's about 80 grand. You don't want to earn more or less than that. That's the...
So the key is, the system that I envisage is, if you make more than that, you use the rest to actually ensure that other people's needs are met and the needs of the planet. And we have to rethink the way manufacturing is happening in this country. For example, we have this focus on net zero.
Yeah.
But what we haven't looked at, and it's complicated measurements that no one understands, but we look at the way in which we can regenerate agriculture. There's a very good film which blew my mind called Kiss the Ground, which is worth watching on it's not YouTube, it's nothing, it's
well, put it in Google.
Anyway, but what it shows is we could actually run farming the way it's supposed to. Because of the focus of capital, we've ended up not farm, looking after the land.
Yes.
So we actually don't. We kill the ground itself. The ground is decimated. We don't have any microbes in the ground, and we separate animals from the ground, and we end up, because we're focused on productivity, we use pesticides which kill the ground, and we end up destroying the system. And all we're doing because of this net zero is we focus on corporate numbers, but really, if we go back to the beginning and look at it simply, we can actually start to create businesses that actually run looking after the planet, looking after the land, looking after agriculture, and actually that would actually create.
Are you an idealist?
No, but hang on a second. But that on the point of idealism, my comment to that is, isn't that precisely what His Majesty the King has done with Duchy Originals? He took over the Dukedom of Cornwall, which is a big holder in agriculture, and started running it along these principles. And actually, to be fair, has quadrupled the profitability of it. I mean, obviously, it's used for public service because that's the pay that the Prince of Wales receives. But I don't think it is idealism. And I have to say to you, the idea that somebody's going to eat a packet of biscuits every day, dragged in from Poland, so that somebody else can buy another yacht, sounds to me to be unhelpful.
It's not. And what we do is we create complicated measures, which means democracies don't work. So we have these silly measures of unemployment and inflation that nobody understands. So the Andrew Bailey says, wonderful, we've turned around, the economy's turned around, we're now going to get 0.5% rather than 0.4%. No one has a clue what the 0.4% means. And the crazy thing about it is it's easy now with technology to measure how many people have got enough money to buy food and drink, how many people are unemployed. But we've chosen not to actually simply measure these things because it suits the people in the power not to have accurate measures.
But that's what I'm saying. I'll say why you're an idealist. It will never change, will it?
It will change.
How?
It has to change.
Well, yeah, but how's it going to with all the people in charge?
Well, democracy will work because ultimately there are a lot of angry young people, a lot of places that have been left behind. And
will it end in a revolution then, with the pitchforks at the door?
I like to think about it as a regeneration rather than a physical fight.
It's a nicer way of putting it.
But hang on a second.
You say democracy will work, but they all just voted for Sadiq Khan.
Allegedly.
But if you think of it, this idea of running companies in a responsible fashion, Chloe, is not actually new. In fact, it's incredibly old. And when Philip sits there and says to me, well, look, we've created this system and every step of it makes sense, but you end up in a position where we're paying 2 million people not to work, and we're dragging these people in from Eastern Europe, they're missing their families, they're leaving their communities, we don't want our communities to be changed by mass immigration. They actually want a decent job in their own country, and the Chinese are being exploited at the same time. There's no winner, apart from one or two very rich people.
No, there's not. I mean, I completely hear what you're saying about mass migration sort of pushing wages down for ordinary Brits. One thing I will add, though, is that there are certainly a lot of jobs that Brits don't really want to do. That
but that's because the pay's rubbish.
I'd argue with you. I agree with you.
No, not just because the pay's rubbish. Like, I do not want to go collect bins at 5 in the morning. That absolutely stinks.
You would for 30 quid an hour?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think if it's decent work, which is meaningful, I think people will do it.
Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to cut you off there, Philip, but we're going to keep you for the next segment, and Chloe's going to stay with us as well. We'll be back continuing to talk about this. I think we've got some calls as well that we may well put through, depending on the timing. We'll be back talking about immigration and its damage to Britain straight after this.